What's the sentiment of those when asked about the Second Amendment? Public perspective is also a major driver for how legislation gets passed, but a recent study from Marquette University looks at gun rights, and in particular, those who favor or oppose the New York State Rifle Association v. Bruen decision. That's led to a lot of courts across the country saying that Second Amendment rights are not second-class rights. Welcome back, Bishop on Air. I'm Greg Bishop, hanging out with you each and every weekday morning. Hopefully you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell as we track what happens with the latest litigation of Illinois' gun and magazine ban and other laws in Illinois that are challenged. We've got the firearm industry liability law that's being challenged in federal court. You've also got the FOID card, the firearm owner identification card, that's being challenged in court. All of those things still alive in the courts, but we're awaiting for February 28th in the lower court in the Southern District of Illinois. Federal court Judge Stephen McGlynn moving forward with that case challenging the gun and magazine ban on the merits. But of course, a lot of that's going to be based off of what the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals ruled, but also looking at the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Bruen, which was the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association's case that they brought forward. But you've got the Marquette University poll that's being highlighted here by the Firearms Policy Coalition, and they show that opinion on the Bruen decision, a solid majority, 64%, favor Bruen's affirmation of a right to possess a firearm outside the home, while 36% are opposed to the decision. There's been little change in these views since September of 23 to now. So that's interesting to see, because a lot of times you see some public polling indicating one way or the other, and anybody who's studied communications in college, for instance, even those who haven't, if you're familiar with Edward Bernays, he is considered the father of public relations, and he wrote a book about propaganda and talking about how you can, in a way, manipulate public opinion by using public opinion polls. And that's a fascinating history if you want to go down that road of studying communication and how public polling can be used to actually craft public opinion. But this is an interesting one from Marquette. So the law school there finding that 64% of U.S. adults approve the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruen. But something else that the Firearms Policy Coalition has highlighted here is a Pennsylvania state court that ruled 4-1 that a town's zoning restrictions on gun ranges does not violate the Second Amendment. And the opinion ends with a paragraph about how the justices don't like the Bruen decision. They go on to say that we close by adding our voice to the ever-growing chorus of courts across the country that have implored the High Court to answer some of the many questions that Bruen both created and left unresolved, or even to reconsider its path entirely. Our nation's gripped by a level of deadly gun violence our founders never could have conceived, and respectfully, some of the court's actions in recent years have done little to quell the legitimate fears of, quote, the people. The court in Pennsylvania continues, doubtless the federal constitution is king, and the burden of interpreting that all-important document falls solely on the head of the federal judiciary. Still, to many, the Bruen courts, word that the Second Amendment is meant to be adapted to the various crises of human affairs largely rings hollow since the court has frozen its meaning in time in the ways that matter most. Worse yet, the court seemingly moves the goalposts which new cases takes. Most recently, by discarding a case that was uniformly embraced by the courts across the country and replacing it with a harsh history and tradition test that no one asked for. We cannot help but wonder and fear, really, what's next. So again, that's the Pennsylvania Supreme Court making that statement in a case that they decided on that dealt with restrictions on gun ranges in a town's zoning ordinance. So comparing those two, right? I mean, you've got the courts saying one thing about their interpretation of the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling when it comes to the Bruen decision and this history and text test, and saying nobody asked for that. Well, I think people did ask for that because that's why they sued. But regardless, interesting to juxtapose those two things. A public poll about the public's perception of the Bruen decision with the perception of the courts and how they're interpreting things. But we also have an interesting headline here in Illinois when it comes to perception, and that is what you have with the Illinois Supreme Court and the perception of conflicts of interest with the courts. Chicago Tribune's reporting that you've got the Democrats' Political Action Committee that's held by Democrat leader for the Senate President Don Harmon and various others, and the questions of the funds that they gave Illinois Supreme Court candidates before they got elected, and all the question of conflicts of interest. But apparently, the Tribune's reporting that Democrat Political Action Committee lost an appeal of massive fines that they received for not reporting campaign spending. So that's being reported by the Tribune this morning. So some interesting happenings across the country and here in Illinois when it comes to firearms and laws against it, and lawsuits against laws against firearm ownership and so on. So obviously a lot happening across the country, including over in California. Again, Firearms Policy Coalition's on top of this. And if you don't follow them on social media and you're interested in the Second Amendment, you really do have to go and follow the Firearms Policy Coalition. But they have a legal alert. They say a Biden-appointed federal judge has issued a preliminary injunction against California's restrictions on abnormally dangerous firearm-related products, saying they likely violates the Dormant Commerce Clause. So something else, we talk a lot about the Second Amendment, right? But we've heard a variety of other things come up in these lawsuits, from the Fifth Amendment, the 14th Amendment, even the Fourth Amendment. If you're not familiar with these amendments, you really should get a pocket constitution, read through them, right? I mean, the First Amendment's the right of free press, free speech, free assembly, free religion. Second Amendment's the right to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. Third Amendment, is that the one about quartering, where you don't have to house soldiers? Then you get the Fourth Amendment, your rights to be secure from illegal search and seizure, unwarranted search and seizure, I should say. Then your Fifth Amendment, your right to not incriminate yourself. You get through all these other ones, the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and they deal with a variety of things like, no cruel and unusual punishments, and the right to jury by trial and a speedy trial and so on. Then you get to the 14th Amendment, and that's got a whole bunch in there. But one thing is clear, it's also the issue of due process and equal protection under the law. But now the Commerce Clause coming into this. So when you got a right that's being challenged, not just the second, but the fourth, the fifth, the 14th, the Commerce Clause, these are things that get talked about in the courts when they are challenging a lot of this. So interesting to, again, see the various arguments being made across the spectrum. But one thing I also do want to keep you posted on, it doesn't look like there's been an update on the Illinois State Police FOID card portal, where they've been tracking the ongoing firearm registration. Here we are, it's February 22nd. And we don't have an update. The latest update was January 31st. And that was a full month after the deadline to register firearms in the state of Illinois came and went. So we'll see what happens with all of that. It is Bishop on Air. Thanks for hanging out. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay with us as we update you on a variety of things each and every weekday morning here with Bishop on Air. Again, appreciate you guys being here, all right? Stay tuned. More to come.